We are here to talk about the 2022 Oscar nominations. I just finished watching the Twitter telecast, whatever that is. It was a very dry telecast in which they announced all of the nominations, and I'm up bright and early with my cup of coffee here to recap some of those noms for you guys. So let's talk about Best Picture. I think it's probably the best place to start. If you guys are here for the first time, my name is Ben. This is Action Industries. We do movie reviews, we do trailer reactions, we do cast interviews here. And today I wanted to talk to you guys about the Oscar nominations. So let's get into Best Picture first and foremost. 10 nominees. We don't see 10 nominees too often. I do want to get out of the way really quickly. No Marvel movies other than Shang-Chi, Spider-Man No Way Home got a single nomination. Those two nominations both came in the visual effects category. I know that's disappointing for a lot of people. It doesn't feel like this was the year where they were going to recognize. I know there was a push for Spider-Man No Way Home. It didn't happen. I think it was kind of a little bit of I'm tired. I'm trying to come up with words here. I think it was a little bit of a Hail Mary for the fans who loved Spider-Man so much, and it is a little surprising considering there was 10 nominations, and often we get 9 or 8. But the 10 nominations are, for Best Picture, Belfast, Coda, Don't Look Up, Drive My Car, Dune, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, and West Side Story. Of these nominees, I would say West Side Story, Power of the Dog, Licorice Pizza, probably Dune, Belfast. Those to me were like the locks. Those are the ones that I expect that were going to happen. In this list, I'd say the two surprising ones, and across the board, I would say probably the most surprising films to be recognized as widely as they were are Coda and Drive My Car. Drive My Car is a Japanese film. I don't know as much about Drive My Car. It's definitely one that has been coming into the forefront recently. It's definitely a film I would like to watch. Haven't seen it yet. It's something I've heard a lot of people talking about. Coda, which is the Apple film about a girl with a deaf family. It's supposed to be one of the most heartwarming dramas of the year. I've missed a lot of these Oscar movies so far. I'm actually, I'll do the thing I do every year where I go cover my tracks and make sure I watch all the stuff I've missed so far. But Coda definitely got a lot of love, a lot of people talking about Coda. So that's kind of an exciting one to see get recognized widely across the board. Probably for me, the biggest surprise, though, it has to be Nightmare Alley. I just didn't think that movie had legs to be really in the Oscars conversation. Something like Best Makeup, maybe, that's the kind of thing that maybe that movie is all about. But a Best Picture nomination for Nightmare Alley really dignifies that movie in a totally different way. So that's very interesting. I feel like of this group, probably The Power of the Dog is the front runner. I could see a situation in which West Side Story snuck in and got the win because it's just so well liked. But it does kind of feel to me like Power of the Dog is probably the one. And then Dune, getting recognized the way that it is, it feels like that movie that's going to get a lot of nominations and win nothing. So let's talk Best Director. 5 slots here go to Kenneth Branagh for Belfast. We've got Ryusuke Hamaguchi for Drive My Car, Paul Thomas Anderson for Licorice Pizza, Jane Campion, The Power of the Dog, and Steven Spielberg, West Side Story. The big surprise here, no Denis Villeneuve for Dune. Obviously, it's always a little funky when you look at a Best Picture group of 9 or 10. Some of those are not going to have Best Director nominees. Belfast has been kind of a frontrunner for quite a while. I think that Jane Campion's The Power of the Dog has been the frontrunner most of the Oscar season, so those two are kind of shoo-ins. Licorice Pizza with Paul Thomas Anderson getting this nomination, for me, was a little bit of a question mark, given how much controversy that film has had on the online community. I didn't know if it was going to continue its momentum or it was going to get recognized or not. Steven Spielberg for West Side Story, that's kind of just like a shoo-in nomination with how well-liked the movie was. I don't think there's any shot Steven Spielberg wins Best Director for West Side Story. And then Ryusuke Hamaguchi for Drive My Car, as I mentioned, Japanese film. Definitely, this is the 5th slot that I think probably would have gone to Denis Villeneuve for Dune, that I'm a little surprised he didn't get a nomination, considering how much love that movie is getting, and that it got a Best Picture nomination, but I digress. I'm going to drink a little more coffee here. Let's talk actor and actress here. I'm only going to go through probably the top 7 or so awards, and then I may touch on some of the interesting ones beyond those. So, Best Lead Actor, you've got Javier Bardem for being the Ricardos, a movie that is pretty much widely disliked by most people I know, that apparently has strong performances. Again, another one I haven't seen. Benedict Cumberbatch, The Power of the Dog, Andrew Garfield in Tick, Tick, Boom, Will Smith for King Richard, and Denzel Washington for The Tragedy of Macbeth. It is notable that Tick, Tick, Boom, looking over here at the Best Picture category, did not make it. Nothing in Best Director. And Andrew Garfield for Tick, Tick, Boom there with the actor nomination, I think was expected, but I do think this is a movie that a lot of people really loved. So I'm a little surprised, actually, that Tick, Tick, Boom did not make it into the Best Picture category. That feels like a bit of a snub. Cumberbatch is great in The Power of the Dog. I think this is probably Will Smith's award, is my guess. I do think he'll win it. Denzel for Tragedy Macbeth. It's the only real mention of tragedy so far, and it's really one of the few mentions of that film throughout the entire nomination. So surprising to me. I thought that movie, considering all the hype coming out of festivals and how good the performances supposedly were, I thought there was a decent chance that movie was going to get recognized differently. But in this category, I would say probably in the lead actor category, the one that I'm expecting has got to be Will Smith. Probably the dark horse there would be Andrew Garfield for Tick, Tick, Boom. Lead actress, you've got Jessica Chastain for The Eyes of Tammy Faye, Olivia Colman for The Lost Daughter. You've got Penelope Cruz for Parallel Mothers. That's Almodovar's last film. You've got Nicole Kidman for Being the Ricardos and Kristen Stewart for Spencer. To me, this is a pretty down the middle set of nominations. I think this is about what I expected to see. Probably Penelope Cruz for Parallel Mothers is the one that comes as a surprise to me. Maybe Olivia Colman for The Lost Daughter. I didn't think that movie was getting as much buzz, but the other three are, I think, pretty obvious and definitely what I expected. I had heard some people say The Eyes of Tammy Faye was going to get shut out, but I'm glad to see it didn't. I've heard she's very, very good in that, and definitely Kristen Stewart and Spencer, to me here, is probably... Maybe it's her and Nicole Kidman feel like probably the front runners. Stewart, I think, had a little more juice maybe a month ago. Definitely, it seems like it's slowed down for her a bit. So I would say right now the one that's getting the most talk is Nicole Kidman for Being the Ricardos, which is kind of funny to me. I just that didn't feel like a movie and a performance that was going to end up with this much momentum. Let's get into the supporting categories. Best Supporting Actor, you've got Karen Hines for Belfast, Troy Kotsur for Coda, Jesse Plemons for The Power of the Dog, J.K. Simmons for Being the Ricardos, and Cody Smith-McPhee for The Power of the Dog. Coda here with the nomination. That's nice to see. Plemons, The Power of the Dog, is a really surprising one. He's just doesn't do very much in that movie. Like, truthfully, Jesse Plemons just doesn't do a lot in the movie. He's fine, and he does a good job, but he also just doesn't really get the chance to build a character out. He's just not in it with a lot of powerful scenes, or he underplays the character. And I think Plemons is such a good actor. It's cool to see. Keep with his coffee to stay awake here. Cody Smith-McPhee makes sense. He's great in the film. J.K. Simmons Being the Ricardos, the movie definitely getting a little bit more momentum than I expected. And Karen Hines for Belfast, I think, was pretty expected. On the other side of things, Best Supporting Actress. Oh, and who's my front runner in this category? Probably Cody Smith-McPhee would be the one that I would expect will take this home. Maybe Karen Hines, but Cody Smith probably. Best Supporting Actress, you've got Jessie Buckley for The Lost Daughter, Ariana DeBus for West Side Story, Judi Dench in Belfast, Kirsten Dunst for The Power of the Dog, and Ingenue Ellis for King Richard. The exciting one here is Ingenue Ellis. She's terrific in King Richard. I'm glad that she got recognized for the performance. She is as powerful in her scenes, I think, as Will Smith is, and I don't think that his performance works as well without such a strong one from her. So that's definitely cool to see. You have Judi Dench, obviously, who's already won an Oscar for Shakespeare in Love. She's been around forever. It's cool to see her get recognized. And then The Lost Daughter, more performance love for The Lost Daughter. Maggie Gyllenhaal's directed sort of horror thriller type of film has definitely has some legs. So, all right, that's going to cover basically the main categories. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the other important ones. In Best Adapted Screenplay, the films nominated are Coda, Drive My Car, Dune, The Lost Daughter, The Power of the Dog. This, to me, feels like probably this ends just going to Power of the Dog. It is the kind of thing where adapted screenplay could go to Coda. Often in Oscars history, the screenplay categories tend to be the category that recognizes the films that are not going to get as much love for wins in the major categories. Coda and Drive My Car are those two films. It's a shame they're competing against each other in the adapted screenplay category, because if one's going to get the win for the reason I'm talking about, and it's not like it's the only reason, it just tends to be a thing that voters do, probably that ends up being Coda, would have to be my guess. So I think that's the odds-on favorite there. Sian Heder for Coda probably gets that win. In the original screenplay category, you've got Kenneth Branagh writing Belfast, you've got Don't Look Up, King Richard, Licorice Pizza, and The Worst Person in the World. First nomination so far talked about for the worst person in the world, and Licorice Pizza, with PTA. I think probably PTA gets shut out in all categories except for this one. I think original screenplay may go to Paul Thomas Anderson. I could see it going to Adam McKay and David Sirota for Don't Look Up, but I'll bet you this one ends up going to Paul Thomas Anderson. It feels sort of like what I think is going to happen with that movie, that the screenplay will get recognized and everything else will get shut out. Jumping over to Best Cinematography, you've got Dune, Nightmare Alley, The Power of the Dog, Tragedy Macbeth, and West Side Story. No surprises there, really. Dune maybe wins Best Cinematography. Maybe that's the one. I could see it happening. The Power of the Dog has some pretty beautiful cinematography as well, and I know West Side Story does additionally. So probably my guess here is Dune. This feels like it's the movie that would, this feels like the category Dune could pull through on. I'm not going to go line by line on the rest of the nominations. I will just say a few other things that stand out to me. You have The Mitchells versus the Machines getting an animated feature nomination. It's a great film, really cool, on Netflix now. I really like that movie a lot, so I was happy to see that one get the nomination. For Best Costume Design, Cyrano. It's the first nomination we've talked about, Cyrano. I mean, I definitely thought Joe Wright's movie was going to have a little bit more momentum than that, but that one, didn't do much. So that's in Best Costume Design. Nightmare Alley's on that list as well. Best Original Score, you've got Nicholas Britell for Don't Look Up, Hans Zimmer for Dune, Germaine Franco for Encanto, you've got Alberto Iglesias for Parallel Mothers, and Johnny Greenwood for The Power of the Dog. This one's interesting. That's some really, really big names and some beautiful scores. If I had to guess, I think it's probably Dune. Dune has a phenomenal score. I think cinematography and score are probably the two places that I can see it winning. Aside from that, I'm not going to talk about the rest of the categories, not because they're unimportant, but because I just have less to say about them. Those are the quick reviews, category by category. My thoughts overall, I think it's an interesting year. I think there are enough movies that are unspectacular. They probably could have afforded a little bit more attention given. Spider-Man No Way Home is that's the big one for me that I'm like, I just don't know how the movie could make the money that it makes, be reviewed the way that it is, be loved the way that it is, and get so little love at the Oscars. It feels like another one of those situations where the Oscars they're just invalidating popular movies. And I know they had that category from a few years ago, the popular Oscar category, but it just still feels like a little bit tone deaf. Like, it's so much more, that movie is so much more important to people who watch movies in the world in general. And I'm not saying there's anything unimportant about any of these movies, but take like a movie like Belfast, which is a really well-liked movie, but other than it being in the Oscars conversation, just isn't going to be a movie that's going to be talked about in 10 years. And we see this decade after decade, that there are movies that get focused on that all these years later no one talks about at all. I mean, think about this. The Artist won Best Picture in 2012 for a 2011 film, and that just no one talks about that movie. I mean, The Artist, nobody cares. Moneyball lost to The Artist. People talk about Moneyball all the time. You see this decade after decade, the same thing happens. So I think it's a bit of a miss there on the Oscars part, but I'm glad that they decided to go for 10. I'm always a bit more in the category of why don't we get 10 nominations more often? And definitely good to see some diversity across the board. Just interesting nominations, diversity for all nominees for films. And I would definitely say that the two Best Picture and Best Director nominations, both that go for Drive My Car, are interesting. That's definitely a movie, like I said, that has recently picked up steam. Probably going to be on my list to watch very, very soon. And then Coda, getting the Best Picture nomination, I think is a really cool thing. I think both of those stand out to me as the Academy recognizing. I mean, by the way, Coda is that's an Apple movie, right? It's a streaming Apple Plus movie. So unless I'm mistaken, I think that's probably Apple's first Best Picture film. In fact, if you look at the films in the nominations here at the top, Power of the Dog is a Netflix movie. Coda is Apple. Don't Look Up is Netflix. So, in the Best Picture category, you have almost a third of the movies coming from streamers. Anyway, that's going to wrap up my early morning thoughts on our nominations for the 2022 Oscars. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I am definitely a little bit tired. It's a little bit early. I'm going to get this video up and maybe go and perhaps go back to bed for a few minutes or I don't know, I'm drinking coffee, so maybe not. But otherwise, thanks for watching. It's another production from Action Industries. My name is Ben Bateman. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and leave a comment below. Are you satisfied with these nominations? Is there anything that was a huge miss that you're disappointed by? Just let me know. Otherwise, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Have a good day.